The author of James knew, as Fred Rogers did, that human beings don't come into the world as blank slates on which we can write whatever it is that we want to write. We're not blank slates, rather we're bundles of conflicted drives and emotions and affections and passions, impulses which move us very often to harm others and ourselves. We heard this last week in James's excoriating critique of cruel speech. How great a forest is set ablaze by so small a fire as the human tongue. This is one of the common themes of the entire letter of James if you read it from beginning to end. James is concerned with cravings, or these impulses and drives with which we must do something. These cravings at war within us, as our lesson this morning says, lead to everything from hurtful words to murder and violence when we act in accordance with them. The question is whether we will or whether we won't act in accordance with them. That is, the question is, what do we do with the mad that we feel? And James contends that God's grace, or the Spirit of Christ living and dwelling within us, bestows wisdom. This is another theme of the letter of James. Wisdom that comes from above, which is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of hypocrisy or partiality, as our reading puts it. A wisdom out of which we can live graciously and peaceably, taking a hammer to our passions and bending our anger and lust into more lovely shapes, so that we don't hurt one another and don't hurt ourselves. I can stop when I want to. I can stop when I wish. I can stop. And what a good feeling it is to feel like this. There's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. So much for Mr. Rogers just telling America's coddled kids life is a participation trophy. This is the first lesson to be learned, I think, from Mr. Rogers and also from James, that we can't help how we feel. Sometimes we expect ourselves to be able to control our emotions as if the decision was whether or not to feel sad or whether or not to feel angry. You can't help it. Neither can I. But we can, by grace, make choices about what we do with those feelings, choices that mark the difference between the wisdom of the world, which James says is boastful and false, and the wisdom of God, whose works are done with gentleness. Now, the second lesson to be learned from them is even more important than the first. It's that none of this growth in holiness is possible if you don't already know that you are loved and lovable. This is what Mr. Rogers is so roundly criticized for telling us all that we are special and likable just the way we are. But for better or worse, he learned that from our religion. That is the religion. You don't have to like it, but that's what it is. It is Christianity's deep and abiding conviction that the God who is love loved the world into being, and subsequently redeemed that world while it was still in rebellion against him. See, the point in saying, I like you just the way you are, I take it, is not that there's no more growing up to do. Saying I like you just the way you are is meant to assuage the fear buried deep within us that there's something about us, something about the way we're each kind of put together, the particular way in which I tick. There's something about it that's a mistake. And that mistake makes us incapable of being loved. and realizing that we are, in fact, loved and lovable is the first step towards growing up in the Spirit and otherwise.